if you're making 6 gallons total and you have a gallon of honey in there, 5 gallons of wine juice. It's not a bad way to start. Figure out what the sugar content actually you want it to be. But if you want that concentrated wine grape approach, don't add water if you've got wine juice, because you're gonna get a lot better overall flavor texture from using the juice rather than watering it down.
Yeah, and take gravity readings of everything, and then go on the gotmead.com calculator. Vicky, I'm telling you one thing. Anytime I devise a new recipe, I live on that Got Mead calculator.
Really? That's good. Yeah, I've been wanting to get it. I've got to find somebody who's really good with the back-end coding that goes into doing the math. I want to get it updated and cleaned up and broadened out. There's some new stuff we want to add, like Tosna, that needs to go on there. And I just haven't had the opportunity to track down somebody I feel comfortable with. But that's the next task after I survive the Mazer Cup and AMMA conference.
There's not one recipe that comes out of Melovino that didn't go through the Got Mead calculator first.
Awesome. That's so cool.
I'm going to second that, Vicky. I use it all the time. I just looked. I already had it up on my computer from earlier today.
You don't see me sitting over here squeeing just a little bit. What I did is helping. That is really, that's balm to my heart. It really is.
I think it's such a huge help. It's a huge help.
And it's like a 15-year-old. David built that, or David, what the hell? Yeah, whatever. I can't think of his name now. Built that thing for me like 12 years ago and said, "Here, do you need this?" And I'm like, "Thank you." And it seems to be helping people. And now he's like been inactive on the forums for ages. I'm going to see if I can track him down and see where he's at, if he can spend the time, either that or find some new, younger, fresh face who wants to take it on and update it, because I want to turn it into an app. I want to take the Got Mead calculator and create an app so that people can put it on their phone, so that when you're standing in the winery, you don't have to go pull up your keyboard. You can just whip that puppy out, and it'll fit.
If you do that, please, please, please have it interact with Siri, so I could ask her to do bricks to specific gravity conversions.
Let me look into it. The big thing is finding a programmer who can handle doing the app programming and who isn't going to break the bank. I'm not made of money, Hell, I'm not even. My foundations aren't even built on money sometimes. Sergio, you mentioned earlier about you have your formulas, and I'm certainly not going to ask you what those are. But David Webb said a little while ago on the live feed on the chat. That he had a hard time finding info such as what percentage of grape juice is recommended, how to, better ways to balance tartness and tannins. A lot of it's subjective and according to taste, but some guidelines for newbies would be nice as a starting point. The basic info he found was basically like quote, "Pyments are great. You should make one, but I'm not going to tell you any specifics. Here's a list of grapes you've never heard of and will never find. Have fun." And he's right. That's very true. You don't see a lot of, talk about the specifics, and I think that's something that people
how to balance it.
Yeah.
They say it has to be balanced, but you don't really know how to balance it, and I think you guys have actually addressed a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I tell people to taste. I know it's a horrible, horrible thing to give for advice, because it's so subjective, and I know that I'm taking a lot of knowledge and experience for granted. But at the end of the day, if you're not developing your sense of taste with the recipes you're working on, you're missing out on a huge aspect of really understanding, does this recipe actually work for me? Because you can't wait till it's fermented, because then the damage is already done. You've already spent all the money, and if it doesn't work, you're not happy with it. So if you can't taste it up front, if you can't taste fruits, like go and get some of the ingredients you're going to put together, mix a little bit of it in a glass, taste it raw. It's full of sugar and racing acidity, all kinds of stuff. If you can't come to a conclusion that you like that, you got to work at that a little bit, because I think that's such a hugely useful tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and taste it every few days. Especially in the beginning, I was tasting everything. In my homebrew days, even at the meadery, you taste every day or two, while it's fermenting. Just taste it, because the more you get yourself accustomed to tasting something pre-fermentation, 2 days into fermentation, 5 days into fermentation, eventually you'll be able to train your palate enough where the more mead you make, you'll be able to taste something unfermented or taste different ingredients separate, and be able to know exactly how that'll come out eventually. Michael Fairbrother says it all the time, and I love it. And I always kind of thought of it the same way. It's kind of like cooking. When somebody asks you, like, how do you, or somebody asks Fairbrother, how do you make this mead or this or that, or how do you come up with recipes? It's like, oh yeah, a little of this, a little of that. It's kind of like cooking. You just kind of know, and you're not going to know until you really start getting into it and experimenting and training your palate, and sense of smell as well kind of comes into it, and it's just trial and error. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can find some. The best way to start is obviously try to find somebody on the Got Mead forums in particular on the Patreon section, and find some try to work off some Oscar's recipes. And I'm pretty sure he had at least a Pymen or two recipe up on there.
Yeah, he does.
And use that as your base, and then take that formula, that recipe formula, and then change the ingredients. Perfect example, Melovino, we made the first 2 Pyments we ever made. We started talking about that we were going to make a grape mead, and during our tours and tastings, and there was like some people that came to me that said, hey, no, wine and mead are 2 different things. You shouldn't mix them together. And I kind of got taken back by that. I said,
we can put anything we want in our mead, anything.
I'm like, if it tastes good, I don't see any reason why not. But because of that, we ended up calling those 2 meads, those 2 Pyments, a sweet affair. It's like an affair between a mead and a wine. And we made a red and a white wine version of the same recipe. It's exactly the same recipe. It's just different ingredients. Different honey with, one honey with this grape varietal, and then another honey with that grape varietal. So you have to just experiment. Use a proven formula. Start with something like a recipe off the Got Mead Patron forum. Use it as a base, and then play off of that. See how that comes out. Taste it along the way. Taste it from beginning to end, literally, and then just change it up. Use a different varietal. Use different fruit. Whatever it is, you can apply it to kind of any kind of recipe.
So yeah, when you're doing these, those of you out there that are cringing about all the honey that would be used, do 1-gallon batches. That's how. Set up 5 batches with, say, orange blossom honey and 5 different grape varietals. See what you get.
Or take some 1-gallon batches. This one's 10% sugars coming from fruit, coming from grapes. This one's 25. This one's 30. And
then a great way to dial that in would be with the grape concentrate from a wine kit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot easier to measure it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. You take a gravity reading, go on Got Mead, the calculator on Got Mead.
I love all the plugs. Thank you, Sergio.
You're welcome. And then you just plug in like the actual bricks of the percent sugar into I most of the time I don't even, because at the meter we use mostly juice or concentrates. So I go in there, I know exactly how much this concentrate or this juice is going to be in bricks. So I just go in there. I don't even change anything on the drop down. Everything is honey. And I just change the bricks to that specific thing, to whatever unit measure I'm going to use, whether gallons or pounds or whatever it is. And you can basically use everything off of that to determine, okay, this is how much grape juice that I'm going to use to make 25% of the sugars coming from grapes, or 30% or 40%. So you could go. I've made Pyments from as little as 15-18% sugars coming from grapes up to a third. I haven't gone past a third, to be honest, because I want the honey to still kind of shine through, and I think at a third of the sugars coming from grapes, I think it's I found that to be a nice balance. To be honest, you get the grape varietal, you still could get the honey. And it produces a nice balanced product. So if I were to recommend any percentage, do it that way, based on sugar, not volume, though.
Okay. I can hear AJ clicking away. I know she's mad.
Yeah, I'm typing.
That's no worries. I just know she's taking notes.
For perspective, one of the Pyments that we make is 18%. Sugars coming from fruit, and it won a gold medal last year at the biggest mead competition in the world, the Mazer Cup, on the commercial side.
Week.
So, yeah.
I know it's next week. I can't.
I'm so excited.
It's come up so fast again.
You know, I'm equal parts terrified in case I drop some major ball for the MMA conference, and excited to see all my friends that I only get to see once a year, and then also dreading it because I know by Sunday I'm going to be so completely and utterly exhausted and spent from...
And then you have to drive me to the airport at, oh god, it's stupid in the morning on Monday.
Yeah, I know. I mean, seriously, she takes off at 6 a.m. Hamish and I are kind of giving her evil eyes from various parts of the world, going, really?
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It gives me an excuse to haul them up to Boulder to my favorite breakfast restaurant, which is New Orleans style. It's in an old house, and I can't think of the name of the place, but Pete and I used to go there every year in the early years in the Mazer Cup, and it's oh my god, the food is so good, so yeah, I'm gonna drag them up there, and they want to see snow, so I might have to drag them up to Estes Park. I leave at 5 in the afternoon, so I'm gonna make them do all the driving on Monday.
Snow.
They're like, we want to see snow. Yeah, I'm like, okay.
It's been raining for a week, and we still have a foot of snow.
Oh my god. Well, it's gonna be 60 something next week at the Mazer Cup and the AMMA conference. So, in the nighttime, it's going to be down to freezing.
Oh, thank God.
During the day, it's going to be in the 60s. And I'm going, the hell. I told these guys they can see winter. That's not cooperating.
No, I don't want that. Last year sucked. It snowed every day we were there.
Did it really?
Yeah.
I wasn't there last year because I was sick. So yeah.
One year you don't go.
Yeah, 50s and 60s will be fantastic.
Oh god, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's 80 degrees here, and I'm like, the hell? It's freaking February. What is happening here? I mean, really? It's supposed to be winter, or the very early spring, but 80? Yeah, no, I'm not amused.
Climate change obviously doesn't exist. It's all in your imagination.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So, Sergio, as you were describing how you were pulling that recipe together, the thing I was thinking of, and I'm imagining that anyone listening that was kind of confused about this point as well, is you certainly touched on how to figure out the ratios of the sugars between the various things. This, on the Got Me calculator, this piece of honey is actually honey. This piece of honey is actually juice at a different Brix level. And what that doesn't answer, and certainly the calculator doesn't intend to answer this, is what's the acid component of it? What's the tannic component of it? And that's back to the taste. I know there are, and if I remember, I think the Complete Mead Maker has a reference for this, the relative acidities of different fruits. So it would help you understand a grape versus a raspberry, what relatively, how does it rate acid wise? So you can again use something like that as a guide, thinking, okay, 75% of what I am putting in here is grape. I know what the sugar is by that 75%, but for acidity, it rates medium or high on the acidity scale as far as fruits go. So you can pretty much kind of thumb it out that, okay, this is going to have a lot of acidity in it.
One thing to do is find a wine that you like the amount of acidity in, and then take a pH reading, or if you have the money, take a titratable acidity reading, and then basically try to mimic that. I mean, you could get relative figures as far as how much acidity different fruits have, but it's always going to vary, depending on the crop and harvest. It's really tough. There really is no surefire way to really to gauge or measure that easily, essentially, other than just taking readings from batch to batch with each individual group of ingredients. But one thing you could do, like I said, find a wine or a mead that you like the acidity in, and then just reverse engineer it. Take a pH reading, see how low the pH is on that, and then try to, if the fermentation doesn't get down that low, you could play around with adding some acid additions, which I've never been a fan of adding acid additions, but if you are going to add acid additions for a pyment, try to stick to majorly tartaric acid instead of using acid blend. That's another pet peeve of mine. I never understood how the major product in the winemaking world is acid blend, where usually more than at least 40 to 50% of the acid is citric acid, which is the most minute amount of acid found in grapes. But it's, the number one sold